"You really think you'll hit the target with a frame like that?" Sergeant Richard Mills sneered, his mocking laughter ringing out across the outdoor shooting range as his eyes swept over the small figure stepping onto the firing platform. A wave of derisive laughter swept through the recruits watching. A few even pretended to topple backward, applauding sarcastically and filling the air with ridicule. But Alicia Mitchell said nothing, standing perfectly still on the platform, her eyes calm and fixed on the distant target. She was 28, black, petite but muscular, her hair tightly braided to reveal a sharply defined face and deep, dark eyes. Without a word, she gently raised her arms to adjust her stance. As she rolled up her sleeve, her t-shirt rode up slightly, exposing an enigmatic tattoo at her waist, a black viper coiled around a razor-shaped bullet. In that instant, Colonel Michael Harris, standing behind the line of recruits, froze. The steely composure he always wore drained from his face as if he'd glimpsed a ghost from the past. He took a step back, eyes wide with shock, and whispered in a hushed tone laced with reverence and fear, "Oh my God, that's the Black Viper insignia." Despite the ongoing mockery around her, Alicia remained unshaken. She lowered her arm, slipped her sleeve back down to conceal the mysterious symbol, and turned back to the rifle before her. But Colonel Harris couldn't tear his eyes away from her. Memories of a long-buried nightmare on a distant battlefield flooded back in slow motion, each recollection more horrifying than the last. Meanwhile, Sergeant Mills wasn't finished. He strode closer, his face a mix of scorn and impatience. "Mitchell, I don't know why you're even here. Look at you, so tiny. How do you expect to hit anything? You'd better quit this sniper course now and save us all the wasted time." The recruits behind him erupted in fresh waves of laughter, calling out cruel remarks. Who does she think she is, even signing up for sniper training? Maybe she thought this was a yoga class, not a shooting range. But Alicia remained motionless, her gaze steely and unflinching. Her slender fingers lightly traced the rifle's stock as if greeting an old friend. She said nothing, reacting with the silence of a statue. Colonel Harris stood rooted to the spot, now oblivious to the recruits' jeers and Mills's haughty smirk. All he could see was the legend of that infamous unit, the American military's most feared secret squad, which he had believed to be wiped out. "Black Viper," he murmured again, his voice trembling uncontrollably. He remembered all too well. Black Viper was a top-secret task force entrusted with missions no conventional unit dared accept. Its members never showed their faces. Their names and identities were classified to the highest degree. He also knew that nearly every one of them had died on Operation Redline years ago, and any survivors had become nothing more than whispers and legends. Yet here and now, on this firing line at Fort Bragg, that legendary symbol was emblazoned on the body of a seemingly ordinary recruit, Alicia Mitchell. It could only mean one thing: she was no ordinary newcomer, and she had endured experiences he couldn't begin to imagine. Sergeant Mills continued his barrage of taunts, his voice booming, "All right, that's enough, Mitchell. Step aside so the rest of us can shoot. Don't stand here making a spectacle of yourself." Alicia tilted her head, studying him for a moment, then stepped down from the platform and took her place among the observers. No one noticed the flicker of deep pain in her eyes. No one except Colonel Harris. And what he saw was not weakness, but the gaze of a warrior who had survived trials beyond belief. A strange premonition stirred in Colonel Michael Harris's heart. That Black Viper emblem was no coincidence. Alicia Mitchell's presence here, at this precise moment, was a harbinger of events far beyond the imagination of everyone at Fort Bragg. He watched her diminutive figure standing quietly at the edge of the range, respect and fear intertwining in his chest. Colonel Harris drew in a slow, steady breath and whispered, just loud enough for himself, "Perhaps we've just awakened a legend." Colonel Michael Harris's gaze still lingered on the small figure silently standing in the corner of the training ground. Alicia Mitchell, a legend awakening, or just a soldier tormented by her past? He wasn't yet certain, but one thing he understood all too well. She was far more than her fragile, quiet exterior suggested. The first days passed slowly and heavily for Alicia. She barely spoke to anyone on the team, made no effort to make friends. Instead, she observed everything in silence. Every tiny movement, every small habit of her comrades, every contemptuous remark they made about her. Each morning, Alicia was the first to arrive, methodically cleaning and oiling every rifle, every bullet, with the care one might reserve for priceless treasures. At first, a few recruits watched her curiously, some even speculating that she was trying to curry favor by playing servant, but their curiosity quickly turned to mockery. Patterson, a lanky, muscular recruit known for having the loudest voice in the platoon, was the first to taunt her. "Hey, Mitchell," he jeered, "you think wiping down those rifles all day's gonna make you a better shot? Or are you just auditioning for maid duty?" Laughter erupted around him, but Alicia simply glanced at Patterson, then quietly resumed her work. Notably, her eyes held no anger or shame, only a chilling calm. During target practice, she always declined to fire a single shot, standing aside instead and taking meticulous notes on wind direction, temperature, and how environmental factors affected the bullet's trajectory. Whenever Sergeant Mills asked why she wouldn't shoot, Alicia answered softly, her voice enigmatic. "I've handled a weapon before, Sergeant. I just want to understand why I once chose to stop." Her reply baffled her fellow trainees and only fueled their ridicule. They couldn't fathom why a soldier would refuse to train. In their eyes, Alicia seemed lost, inscrutable, and weak. Their mockery grew harsher. Led by Patterson, they hurled more barbs. "She probably only ever shot toy guns at the supermarket. Let me guess," she cried the first time she heard a real gun go off. Laughter thundered through the range. Sergeant Mills made no move to stop them. At times, he even curled his lip in approval. As a battle-hardened veteran accustomed to tough, fearless soldiers, Alicia's small, delicate frame disgusted him. He saw no place for her in his sniper squad. What Mills didn't and could never know was that Alicia Mitchell was fighting her own battle every moment of every day. Each time she looked down the barrel, traumatic memories surged back, vivid down to the smallest detail. The faces of fallen comrades, the lethal accuracy of her shots, the final screams echoing across Hill 9, all haunting her every sleep, every breath. Each night, after the others had left the range, Alicia remained behind, gazing at the distant targets, her fingers tracing the black viper tattoo wrapped around a bullet. It was a bitter reminder of the price she'd paid for every round she'd ever fired. She knew better than anyone that shooting wasn't just about technique or strength. It was about living with the faces and lives you'd taken. That burden she'd never spoken aloud, and no one could understand. One night, as Alicia sat cleaning rifles in the dimly lit armory, the door suddenly slammed open. Sergeant Mills strode in, suspicion etched on his face. "Mitchell, what the hell are you doing here at midnight?" he barked. She looked up calmly from the rifle cradled in her hands. "I'm just making sure they're ready when someone needs them." "Needs them?" Mills scoffed, stepping closer. "You talk like we don't know how to maintain our own weapons." Alicia lifted her eyes to Mills for the first time, and in them shone something entirely different, icy, commanding, and severe enough to make him recoil a step. "Sergeant, you've never felt your weapon fail you at the one moment you needed it most, have you?" Her cold, earnest tone stunned Mills into silence. Those eyes, that voice, they didn't belong to a helpless rookie. They belonged to someone who'd walked through the hell of combat and lived to tell the tale. The door closed behind Mills, leaving Alicia alone in the darkness, surrounded by gleaming rifles lined up like silent sentinels, and a heart weighed down by unending memories. Outside that closed door, Mills stood frozen for a long moment, doubts and a strange wariness stirring within him as he tried to comprehend the true nature of the diminutive soldier named Alicia Mitchell. Finally, one burning question formed in his mind. Who on earth is she, really? The big question haunted Sergeant Richard Mills's mind for days afterward, and he couldn't shake the deepening suspicion gnawing at him. Every step, every tiny gesture of Alicia Mitchell had become the focus of his attention, like a small thorn constantly pricking at his thoughts. That evening, after another grueling training session, Alicia sat alone in the armory's maintenance room. A single pale yellow bulb cast a soft glow over the rifles lined up on the table. Her slender, precise fingers moved slowly across each component, handling them as if they were living things with their own breath and soul. The dim light sketched shadows across her resolute face. Her deep-set eyes held secrets she had never shared with anyone. Just as Alicia picked up an M24 sniper rifle for a final inspection, the door burst open with a harsh crack in the silence. A tall figure filled the doorway, the familiar stern visage of Sergeant Mills, backlit by the muted light. He stepped forward, his gaze hard and suspicious as he fixed Alicia with an accusing stare. "Mitchell, can you explain what you think you're doing? It's been days, and I still don't understand why you stay here every night cleaning guns." Alicia slowly lifted her eyes, her expression unshaken by Mills's icy scrutiny. Her voice was calm, but carried an edge of mystery as she replied, "I'm making sure they're ready when someone needs them." Her cold, enigmatic answer made Mills shiver. There was something in her tone, and in her eyes that unsettled him. Quickly, forcing a light laugh, he crossed his arms. "Listen, Mitchell, there's no room here for riddles or half-truths. Why have you refused to participate in live-fire drills? What are you hiding?" Without changing her posture, Alicia gently set the rifle back on the table and met Mills's gaze. The chill precision in her eyes was unmistakable. "I'm not hiding anything, Sergeant. I'm just not ready to pull the trigger again, but when the time comes, I will do it without hesitation." Her words hung in the air like both a promise and a threat. The room fell silent except for their breaths. After a moment, Mills frowned and snorted. "I'll be watching you, Mitchell. Don't think your mystery can fool me. You're not as simple as you seem." He turned and strode out, his heavy footsteps echoing down the dark corridor. Alicia remained seated, her gaze drifting back to the rifles, as her hands resumed their work as though nothing had happened. Yet, inside her heart, old, dark memories were stirring more fiercely than ever. At that very moment, in the office at the end of the command building at Fort Bragg, Colonel Michael Harris sat before his computer, the pale blue glow of the screen illuminating his thoughtful face. A series of classified files lay open: Operation Redline, Black Viper, and a long list of names stamped KIA. His eyes paused on a faded photograph of a young female sharpshooter, her keen eyes and tight braids unmistakable. Below, it read in bold type, "Staff Sergeant Alicia Mitchell, Black Viper Unit 12, missing during Operation Redline. Status, killed in action." Harris clenched his fist, his heart pounding as he tried to reconcile the impossible. How could someone declared dead years ago be standing in his rookie platoon, bearing an insignia he knew he could never mistake. He opened another dossier and studied every line with care. Battle reports, shot counts, top-secret intelligence from that mission, all pointing to one conclusion. The soldier codenamed Viper had vanished without a trace. One thought pulsed through his mind, heavy with doubt. Was this truly Alicia Mitchell, or someone exploiting the legend of a fallen hero to infiltrate his unit? His mind raced with tense, uneasy possibilities. Harris knew he would have to move with extreme caution. One wrong step could spell disaster for his entire command, perhaps for the whole base. Rising from his chair, he resolved to open a discreet investigation into Alicia Mitchell. The old photograph still sat before him, its subject staring back with a familiar yet haunting intensity. "I need to know who you really are, Mitchell," he whispered, stepping out of his office. And as he left, the ghosts of the past began to awaken once more. From the very first light that morning, the atmosphere on the firing range was charged with an unusual tension. Every eye covertly flicked toward Alicia Mitchell, who stood quietly in a corner as if trying to melt into the surroundings. But today, no one intended to ignore her presence. Instead, she was the focal point of every scrutinizing glance, equal parts curiosity and malice. Leading the group of rookies was James Patterson, a smug smile playing on his lips. His eyes sparkled with provocation, clearly anticipating a spectacular failure from the mysterious teammate he'd always looked down on. When Sergeant Richard Mills strode into the range, his face stern and unyielding, he scanned each recruit before finally resting on Alicia. At that moment, a thin, mocking smile curved his mouth. "Today's the first live fire exercise," he announced, "and our opening shot goes to Mitchell. Let's see if you can do anything, or if you'll just stand there like a statue again." Tittering laughter rippled through the ranks, and a few recruits even whistled in scorn. Alicia didn't respond. She simply stepped up to the firing platform. Her footing was steady and composed as always, though inside her chest, long-suppressed memories and emotions surged like a gathering tide. Patterson called out, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Hey, Mitchell!" "Watch it. Don't let the sound of your own gun scare you." The team laughed again, the air growing ever thicker with tension. Alicia remained motionless, eyes locked on the distant target. She raised the M24 rifle deliberately, her grip expertly firm. It was the stance of someone who had spent thousands of hours with a weapon. Yet no one recognized that familiarity. They only saw a tiny woman battling the ridicule of her comrades. Just then, Colonel Harris stepped onto the range. His gaze snapped to Alicia, and he narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing every move as if hunting for proof that she truly was the soldier reported lost long ago. "Mitchell, what are you waiting for?" Sergeant Mills snapped impatiently. "Fire, or have you forgotten how to pull the trigger?" Alicia said nothing. She bent slightly, realigning her aim. As she did, her shirt rode up a bit, clearly revealing the black Viper tattoo coiled around a bullet, marked with the sharp letters BV-12. Every eye instantly zeroed in on that emblem. A hush of astonished whispers swept through the group until it died away entirely. No one fully understood the tattoo's true meaning, but they all sensed the terrifying weight it carried. Colonel Harris's expression shifted dramatically. He lunged forward, his voice ringing out with battlefield urgency. "Stop! Mitchell, put the rifle down! She was Black Viper!" His words thundered across the range, freezing everyone in place. Astonished stares turned toward Alicia. The sound of quickened, nervous breaths broke the sudden silence. Sergeant Mills's eyes went wide in surprise at Harris's fierce intervention. He quickly regained his composure and demanded, "Sir, What do you mean? Black Viper? That unit was wiped out years ago. Colonel Harris turned to him, his gaze grim and haunted. I'm not mistaken, Sergeant. Black Viper was the top-secret unit that took on America's darkest missions. BV-12 isn't a unit number. It's the number of comrades she lost in that fateful battle. An almost sacred silence fell over the range. No one dared speak. They simply stood in awe and fear, realizing they had insulted a legend they knew nothing about. A bloody legend the military had worked to erase from memory. Slowly, Alicia stood upright and gently lowered her rifle. For the first time, she looked Colonel Harris in the eye. Her gaze was filled with a sorrow none had seen before, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet but unmistakable, cold and heavy with truth. That's right, Colonel. I'm the only survivor, and I'm not here to prove my shooting skills to anyone. Patterson and the other recruits fell utterly silent. No one dared utter another taunt. They stood frozen, aware that they had just crossed paths with a legend they didn't understand. Colonel Harris stepped forward, his tone softening but remaining grave. Mitchell, we need to talk. I need to know what you've been through, and why you've come back here, carrying the memories we all wanted to forget. Alicia nodded once, her eyes both sorrowful and resolute. She met his gaze and replied softly, I understand, Colonel. I'm ready to tell you. In that moment, no one moved or spoke. It was as if the entire range held its breath, waiting for a legendary story to be unveiled, one that would forever change how they saw Alicia Mitchell, the small woman burdened by a horrifying past. Colonel Michael Harris's gaze still wouldn't leave the small figure standing silently in the corner of the firing range. Alicia Mitchell. Was she a legend reborn, or merely a soldier haunted by her past? He wasn't sure yet. But one thing he knew all too well. This woman was far more than her fragile, quiet exterior suggested. The first days crawled by for Alicia, weighted and slow. She barely spoke to anyone on the team and made no effort to fit in. Instead, she quietly observed everything. Every minor movement, every small habit of her comrades, every scornful remark about her. Each morning, she was the first to arrive, methodically preparing the gear and cleaning each rifle and every round as if they were priceless treasures. At first, some recruits watched her with mild curiosity, even assuming she was trying to win them over by playing servant. But their interest quickly turned to mockery. Patterson, a tall, burly rookie known for having the loudest voice, was the first to taunt her. Hey, Mitchell, he jeered. You think polishing those rifles all day is going to make you a better shot? Or are you just auditioning for maid duty? Laughter erupted around him, but Alicia merely looked at Patterson for a moment, then silently resumed her work. Remarkably, there was no anger or shame in her eyes, only a chilling calm. In live-fire drills, she always refused the rifle, standing off to the side instead, meticulously noting wind direction, temperature, and environmental effects on bullet trajectory. Whenever Sergeant Mills asked why she wouldn't shoot, Alicia answered softly and enigmatically, I've handled a weapon before, Sergeant. I just want to understand why I once chose to stop. Her answer baffled her teammates and only fueled their derision. They couldn't understand why a soldier would refuse to train. To them, Alicia was an outsider, mysterious and weak. Their mockery grew harsher. Patterson led the charge. She probably only ever shot toy guns at the supermarket. Let me guess, she cried the first time she heard a real gun go off. The recruits howled with laughter. Sergeant Mills did nothing to stop it. At times, he even smirked in agreement. As a seasoned soldier used to seeing brave warriors, Alicia's diminutive frame disgusted him. He saw no place for her in his sniper squad. What Mills didn't and couldn't know was that Alicia Mitchell was waging a constant battle with herself. Every time she looked down a barrel, painful memories surged back in vivid detail. Fellow soldiers, the deadly precision of her shots, the final screams on Hill 9. They haunted her dreams and every breath she took. Each night, after everyone left the range, Alicia stayed behind, staring at the distant targets, her fingers tracing the black viper tattoo coiled around a bullet. It was a bitter reminder of the price she paid for every round she'd ever fired. She knew that shooting was more than technique or strength. It was living with the faces and lives you had taken. She'd never spoken this aloud, and no one could understand. One night, as Alicia sat cleaning rifles in the dim armory, the door slammed open. Sergeant Mills entered, suspicion writ large on his face. "Mitchell, what the hell are you doing here at midnight?" She looked up calmly at the rifle in her hands. "I'm making sure they're ready when someone needs them." "Needs them?" Mills sneered, stepping closer. "You talk like we don't know how to maintain our own weapons." For the first time, Alicia's eyes flickered with something different. Icy, commanding, and so authoritative that Mills took an involuntary step back. "Sergeant," she said coldly, "you've never felt your weapon fail you at the moment you needed it most, have you?" Her tone stunned Mills into silence. Those eyes and that voice didn't belong to a fragile rookie. They belonged to someone who had walked through the hell of combat and lived to tell the tale. The door closed behind Mills, leaving Alicia alone in the dark with the polished rifles and a heart heavy with unending sorrow. Outside that door, Mills stood motionless for a long moment, suspicion and uneasy reverence stirring in his mind. A single question formed. Who on earth is she, really? A hush fell over the Fort Bragg range, as if the very ground itself were holding its breath, hanging on every word Alicia Mitchell had just spoken. The recruits, from James Patterson to those who once treated her as a joke, now stood frozen like statues, their eyes fixed on Alicia with a mix of awe and disbelief. Colonel Michael Harris remained silently before her, each of her words cutting deep into his heart like shards of glass. At last, Harris spoke, his voice trembling with emotion and doubt. "Mitchell, I never thought I'd see the person who saved my life on Hill 9 again. I never knew her name or saw her face at the time. I thought whoever pulled me out was lost forever on that battlefield." Alicia looked up at Harris, and for the first time her eyes held not only that familiar icy precision but also the tender sorrow of a long-buried memory. Her voice was soft, but each word rang out clearly. "That day, Colonel, I was assigned to support your team from a great distance. Hill 9 was reported to be held by a single enemy sniper, but when I reached my observation post, the situation was far more dire than anyone anticipated. We were not facing one sniper, but an entire ambush team of highly skilled marksmen." Harris nodded slowly, his gaze distant as if replaying every detail of that fateful ordeal. Alicia drew a deep breath, her eyes seeming to pierce through space and time. "When I took up position in the old clock tower, about 900 meters from where you were trapped, I counted at least 17 enemy snipers controlling that entire area. You and your men were pinned down in that ruined building, unable to advance or retreat. Within 30 minutes, it had become a fight for survival." Harris swallowed hard, his fist clenching. He had never known those particulars, yet every detail matched his own recollection exactly. "Do you remember how you were wounded, Colonel?" Alicia asked gently. Harris closed his eyes briefly, then nodded weakly. A round grazed my head as I was trying to radio in for evac. I bandaged myself with my handkerchief and kept calling for help, even though I knew the radio was busted. Precisely, Alicia agreed, her tone sharpening, and I watched it all through my scope for over 6 hours. Harris's eyes flew open, astonished. You watched me that long? But why didn't you fire sooner? Alicia met his gaze, her voice cold yet powerful, every syllable engraving itself on the listeners' minds. I did fire, Colonel, but I could not rush it. I had to wait for the exact moment. I couldn't afford to waste a single round. I had to be certain that when I pulled the trigger I would save you. I neutralized 11 of the 17 enemy snipers from nearly a kilometer away, without ever revealing my position. No one dared breathe. Patterson hung his head, shame and admiration warring in his chest. I witnessed your desperation, Colonel, Alicia continued, her voice dropping to a haunting whisper. I saw you tear at your bandage, saw you clutch the broken radio, scream for help even when you knew no one could hear. I saw your despair, your belief that you would never make it home. Harris's body trembled, tears glistening in his eyes. He could scarcely believe that memories he had thought were his alone had been observed by another so precisely. At your last moment, when you tried to move toward the window to escape, I saw an enemy sniper zero in on you. I knew there was only one shot I could take, no margin for error. I steadied my breath, and I squeezed the trigger. Alicia paused, the silence stretching like an eternity. That was the longest shot of my life, sir, she said quietly. But I made it. That bullet saved you. Harris blinked back tears. Why did you never tell anyone this? We searched for the shooter for years, all records wiped clean. Alicia was silent a long moment, her gaze distant as though reliving the past. Because I know the price of every bullet I fire. I never wanted to become a legend or a hero. I only ever wanted to save my comrades. And sometimes silence is the only way to protect the ones you love from being haunted by the past. Her words resonated like a living lesson in courage and selfless sacrifice. Harris looked deep into her eyes, his voice warm with respect. Mitchell, you didn't just save my life that day, you gave me the chance to live on, as a man, as a soldier. I owe you everything. Alicia simply nodded, her expression softening though the pain still lingered in her eyes. And in that moment, everyone who had ever underestimated her realized one undeniable truth. Alicia Mitchell was a living legend. A true Black Viper warrior who had stepped out of the shadows to tell a story that would never be forgotten. The air fell silent across the Fort Bragg range, as if the very ground held its breath, still echoing the final words of Alicia Mitchell. The rookies who had once mocked her now stood in awed, solemn silence, their gazes fixed on Alicia with newfound respect. Colonel Michael Harris watched her, admiration and deep reverence shining in his eyes. He no longer doubted that the legendary soldier stood before him. After a long pause, Alicia quietly returned to the firing line. Every eye followed her measured, confident steps, as if witnessing a living legend awaken. She lifted her M24 rifle with practiced ease, her small but steady hands caressing the stock, meticulously checking the scope and making precise adjustments as though the rifle were an extension of her own body. This time, not a single taunt or challenge echoed across the range. The hush was so complete that every faint breath, every heartbeat pounding in their chests, was audible. Patterson stood there, no longer scornful but filled with curiosity and a desperate need to witness what he had once thought impossible. Alicia shouldered her rifle, her petite frame melding seamlessly with the weapon. She bent at the waist, her eye pressed to the scope, breathing steady and slow, her body motionless like a perfect statue. 3 distant targets, roughly 900 meters apart, Sergeant Mills called out, this time with seriousness and respect, not mockery. Understood, Alicia replied softly, never breaking her focus. In an instant, time seemed to freeze. Every recruit tensed, unwilling to miss a single movement. Even Colonel Harris, who had already seen her extraordinary skill, felt his pulse quicken with anticipation. Then the sharp crack of the first shot shattered the silence. The round streaked through the air and split the first target dead center at an almost impossible distance. Before anyone could exhale, the second shot followed, again bisecting the second target with lethal precision. But Alicia was not done. The third shot rang out immediately, powerful and decisive. The final, nearly indistinguishable target was pierced cleanly, split in two with unnerving accuracy. Absolute astonishment fell over the range. Patterson's eyes widened, his lips trembling as words failed him. Sergeant Mills stood rooted to the spot, his face pale, his hand trembling. He had never witnessed such sniper prowess. The other recruits exchanged stunned glances, as if they had just seen a miracle beyond explanation. Alicia slowly lowered her rifle and rose upright. She turned to face them, her expression serene, and her voice rang clearly across the silent field. The best shot is the one no one remembers, because everyone lives. Her words struck them like a bolt, revealing that Alicia was more than a master marksman. She was a soldier who understood the life and death weight of every round she fired. To her, each shot was a solemn duty, never to be taken lightly. Colonel Harris stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her shoulder, his eyes brimming with genuine gratitude. Mitchell, your skill surpasses anything I've ever witnessed, but what truly earns my admiration is how you never forget your responsibility with each shot. Alicia met his gaze and nodded, her tone calm and warm. That was Black Viper training. We never forget that every bullet carries someone's life. We don't shoot to be the best, we shoot to ensure every comrade returns home. Patterson stepped forward hesitantly. Struggling for words, he finally spoke the thought on everyone's mind. Mitchell, I'm sorry. We were wrong to underestimate you. I never imagined a soldier like you existed. A genuine, gentle smile crossed Alicia's face. It's okay, Patterson. I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. I'm here so you all understand that sometimes the person you least expect is the one who can save your life in darkest moments. In that moment, the entire unit seemed reborn. They looked at each other with fresh insight, no more prejudice or doubt, only solidarity and respect. They had just witnessed the skill and spirit of a true Black Viper warrior, a living legend. From that moment on, the name Alicia Mitchell was no longer the target of ridicule, but a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and duty, the qualities every soldier aspires to carry. Alicia's words hung in the air, and once again a deep silence settled over the Fort Bragg range, as if the very ground were absorbing every syllable she'd spoken. The rookies who had once mocked her now stood in respectful, haunted stillness. Colonel Harris looked at her with admiration, his eyes free of any doubt about the legendary soldier standing before him. After a long pause, Alicia quietly stepped back to the firing line. Every gaze followed her slow, deliberate stride, as though witnessing a legend stirring to life. She lifted her M24 rifle with fluid expertise, her small but strong hands caressing the stock, inspecting the scope, and making minute adjustments as if the weapon were an extension of her own body. This time, not a single jeer or provocation broke the silence. It was so still that every shallow breath and every heartbeat seemed amplified in the hush. Patterson stood motionless, no longer scornful but rapt with curiosity, eager to see what he had once thought impossible. Alicia shouldered the rifle, her petite frame melding seamlessly with the weapon. She bent at the waist, eye to the scope, breathing measured and steady, her body perfectly still like a sculpted statue. 3 distant targets, roughly 900 meters apart, Sergeant Mills announced, his tone serious and respectful instead of mocking. "Understood," Alicia replied softly, never breaking her focus. In an instant, time itself seemed to pause. Every recruit held their breath, unwilling to miss a single movement. Even Colonel Harris, who had already seen her extraordinary skill, felt a surge of anticipation in his chest. Then the sharp crack of the first shot shattered the silence. The round streaked through the air, slicing the first target cleanly in two at what seemed an impossible distance. No sooner had the echo faded than the second shot rang out, once again bisecting its mark with surgical precision. But Alicia was not finished. The third shot followed immediately, firm, decisive. The final target, a nearly indistinct shape from that vantage, was also pierced dead center, split with terrifying accuracy. The range erupted in stunned amazement. Patterson's eyes flew wide open, his lips trembling as he found himself speechless. Sergeant Mills stood rooted in place, pale-faced and trembling. He had never witnessed such sniper prowess. The other rookies exchanged bewildered glances, as if they had just seen a miracle beyond explanation. Alicia lowered her rifle, straightened, and turned to face them. Her expression was calm, and her voice rang out clearly. "The best shot is the one nobody remembers, because everyone lives." Her words landed like a forceful blow to each listener's core, revealing that Alicia was more than a master marksman. She was a soldier who understood the life and death gravity of every bullet she fired. To her, each shot was a solemn choice, never to be taken lightly. Colonel Harris stepped forward and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes shining with genuine respect. "Mitchell, your skill surpasses anything I've ever witnessed. But what truly impresses me is how you never forget your responsibility with every shot." Alicia met his gaze and nodded, her tone gentle yet resolute. That was Black Viper training. We never forget that every bullet carries someone's life. We don't shoot to be the best. We shoot to make sure our comrades return home. Patterson stepped forward tentatively. Struggling for words, he finally spoke what everyone was thinking. "Mitchell, I'm sorry. We were wrong to underestimate you. I never imagined a soldier like you existed." A genuine, faint smile touched Alicia's lips. "It's okay, Patterson. I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. I'm here so all of you understand that sometimes the person you least expect is the one who saves your life in the darkest moments." In that instant, the entire unit seemed transformed. They looked at one another with fresh understanding. No more prejudice or doubt, only solidarity and true respect. They had just witnessed the skill and spirit of a genuine Black Viper warrior, a living legend. From that moment on, the name Alicia Mitchell would no longer be the target of ridicule, but a living emblem of courage, sacrifice, and duty, qualities every soldier aspires to embody. The atmosphere at Fort Bragg had completely changed after that fateful training session. The looks of doubt and ridicule once aimed at Alicia Mitchell were now replaced by deep respect, even regret upon learning she would soon be leaving. Sergeant Mills no longer wore his haughty, cold demeanor. His gaze had softened, understanding the true value this soldier had brought to the unit. That afternoon, Alicia stood before the formation of recruits, quietly taking in each youthful face, full of life yet naive, having never known the losses she had endured. She drew in a slow, deep breath, preparing to speak the words that mattered most before she departed. "Today is my last day here." Her voice rang out softly but decisively, clear enough for everyone to hear. "I'm leaving this training course not because I think I'm too good, but because there's nothing more I need to learn. What I needed to learn, I learned on the battlefield, from the comrades who fell, and from my own mistakes." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I want you to understand this. A sniper's mission is not to become a hero. You're not on the battlefield to chase fame or praise. Every time you pull the trigger, you bear an immense responsibility, the life of your comrade, their last hope of making it home." Her words cut deeper than any classroom lecture. Patterson, standing at the front, watched her intently, emotion clear on his face. Her message struck him like a blow, revealing his own past failings. After a moment of silence, Patterson stepped forward, his voice trembling but sincere. "Mitchell, may I ask you one last thing?" Alicia nodded gently, her eyes encouraging him. "How? How do we become like you? How can we be as strong and resolute, so we never let our comrades down?" They all waited in absolute silence, as though her answer held the key to every challenge they would face. Alicia moved a step closer to Patterson, her gaze stern but kind, like an older sister offering honest advice. "Patterson, I don't want you to become like me," she said, her tone firm yet heartfelt. "Because I have failed. I lost 12 of my comrades on the battlefield, and I've lived with that regret ever since. If you truly want to learn from me, learn from my mistakes." She drew in another breath, her eyes sweeping over every recruit, etching her words into their minds. "Become better than me. Be the best version of yourselves, a version that understands the weight of every shot, a version strong and clear-headed enough to save every comrade, so no one is ever left behind." Her voice softened as painful memories briefly flickered across her face. Instead of turning away, she faced them directly in front of the young soldiers. "You will face many hard choices on the battlefield. There will be moments when you feel like giving up. But I hope that in those darkest times, you remember that every bullet you fire isn't just to kill the enemy. It's to bring your comrade home safely." Alicia took a step back, her eyes shining with resolve. "I want nothing more than for you to do better than I ever did. Because if you can do that, the sacrifice of the comrades I lost will not have been in vain." Patterson nodded, tears in his eyes but determination in his gaze. "I promise you, Mitchell, we won't forget your words today. We'll do everything we can to never make the same mistakes you paid for with your comrades' lives." Alicia gave a genuine, gentle smile. "It's not about proving yourselves. It's about protecting the people you serve with. Remember this, the most important thing isn't who you become later, but what you do today to keep your comrades safe." As Alicia turned and walked away, the entire formation snapped to attention and saluted her with profound respect. Colonel Harris stood as well, his voice strong and emotional. "Thank you, Mitchell. We will always remember what you taught us." Alicia did not look back, but her hand rose in a soft salute in return. Her footsteps carried her off the range, steady and resolute, leaving behind young soldiers wiser than before. From that day on, every time they pulled the trigger, they would remember the legendary soldier's final counsel: become better than me and bring every comrade home. As Alicia's figure disappeared beyond the Fort Bragg gate, the range fell into a quiet stillness tinged with regret. Though she had walked away from this place, her final words continued to echo in the minds and hearts of the young soldiers she'd led. The next morning, when the recruits entered the common area to prepare for the day's training, they discovered something unusual. At each place where they sat lay a small envelope, neatly addressed in the same sharp yet graceful handwriting: Alicia's. Each person picked up their letter, a strange swell of emotion rising in their chest. James Patterson, hands trembling, opened the envelope bearing his name and read Alicia's carefully penned message. James, I know true courage lies within you. Never let pride obscure it. Remember, the best soldier isn't the strongest or the most technically skilled, but the one who puts comrades above all else and learns from mistakes. You are better than you think. Prove it. Patterson went silent, his heart pounding as those sincere, profound words struck at the pride he had once held so high. For the first time, he truly understood Alicia's message. A soldier's real strength isn't flawless marksmanship, but humility and devotion to the team. All around him, the other recruits were absorbed in their own letters. The honest advice and clear, heartfelt guidance moved many to the point of tears. They realized just how much time Alicia had spent observing each of them so she could write such meaningful words. Each letter ended with the same powerful encouragement. You are better than you think. Prove it. The atmosphere in the common area grew solemn. The recruits exchanged determined looks, no trace of mockery left. Patterson carefully folded his letter and tucked it into his uniform pocket, then stood and spoke with clarity and earnestness. I think we all understand what Mitchell meant. She wasn't just the best soldier we've ever met. She was our most devoted teacher. We owe it to her to prove that her investment in us wasn't in vain. The entire formation nodded in agreement, resolve shining in their eyes. From a corner, Sergeant Mills watched the scene quietly, holding the letter addressed to him. He reread Alicia's thoughtful, heartfelt words and felt a stirring even in his battle-hardened heart. Sergeant Mills, I know you've always held your trainees to the highest standards. But remember, sometimes the ones who seem weakest possess the greatest strength. Don't underestimate anyone. Lead with your heart, not just strict discipline. You are better than you think. Prove it. Mills exhaled slowly, a profound reflection softening his gaze. He recognized his own past mistakes, how his pride had blinded him to the potential of soldiers he deemed unworthy. Alicia had awakened him and taught him the most important lesson of his career. True strength lies in humility and trust. Carefully, he placed all of Alicia's letters into a small box, which he set prominently on his desk. He knew these weren't just hurried notes, but the priceless legacy of a legendary soldier, a petite woman who had transformed the hearts and minds of those around her. From that day on, whenever a new training class arrived, Mills would recount the story of Alicia Mitchell, the legendary soldier with extraordinary skills and, more importantly, her compassionate teachings. He always concluded his tale by presenting her letters to the recruits, his voice solemn and heartfelt. You will never meet the woman who wrote these words, but what she left behind is proof of a soldier's true power, not in weapons but in courage, responsibility, and humility. Always remember, each of you is better than you think. Prove it. And so, Alicia's legacy spread ever wider through Fort Bragg. Her encouraging words became a guiding star for every young soldier she once trained, helping them grow, become stronger, and face every challenge with resolve. Over time, no one remembered Alicia Mitchell as the overlooked recruit they once dismissed. Instead, they remembered her as a living symbol of courage, sacrifice, and duty, whose enduring spirit taught young soldiers to find their true strength within. Since Alicia Mitchell's figure disappeared beyond the Fort Bragg gate, the base has never been the same. Her lessons took root quickly in every corner and every heart, like a summer rain reviving a once barren garden. The atmosphere on the training field has grown serious, professional, and full of camaraderie. Taunts and sarcasm have vanished, replaced by genuine encouragement and heartfelt support. Each soldier now sees themselves reflected in their comrades, understanding that a unit's true strength lies in mutual support and protection, not in individual showmanship. James Patterson has transformed more than anyone else. No longer arrogant, he stays up late helping weaker teammates with marksmanship drills, patiently guiding them through every minute detail. Inspired by his example, the other rookies have matured quickly, becoming more responsible and steady in every action. Sergeant Mills, once known for his rigid severity, has also softened his approach. He no longer enforces mindless strictness. Instead, he listens, observes, and dedicates himself to mentoring each soldier according to their unique abilities and strengths. From time to time, he quietly opens the small box holding Alicia's letters, reminding himself of the legendary soldier who completely changed his view of what it means to be a true soldier. Meanwhile, Colonel Michael Harris has undergone a deeper, quieter transformation. Late at night, after the base has fallen silent, he often sits alone in his office, reflecting on everything Alicia taught him. On his desk rests a small framed photograph of the Black Viper unit taken long ago. To Harris, that photo is far more than a keepsake. It is a powerful reminder of a commander's true duty and the sacrifices contained within each face, the youthful determination, and the unspoken cost Alicia carried. Every time he looks at those soldiers who never returned, he rediscovers the precious value of life and the weight of command. One afternoon, Patterson hesitantly entered Harris's office and found him sitting quietly, holding the Black Viper photo. "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you," Patterson said respectfully. "Not at all, Patterson. Come in," Harris replied, gently setting the photo down and looking at him with warmth. "Sir, I just wanted to tell you that we, all the recruits, have changed so much thanks to what Mitchell left behind. I think she didn't just help us grow, she taught us what a real soldier is." Harris gave a knowing smile. "You're right, Patterson. Mitchell didn't just change you, she changed me too. Sometimes I wonder, if she hadn't saved me on Hill 9, I never would have seen all the wonderful things she brought to this place." Patterson was silent for a moment, then looked at the photo Harris had picked up again, his voice soft and moved. "Colonel, this was her unit. Do you think we can become as good as they were?" Harris met his gaze solemnly. "I believe you can. You can even surpass them, if you always remember that a soldier's true worth isn't measured by killing the enemy, but by protecting and bringing your comrades home safely." Patterson nodded firmly, his eyes bright with renewed purpose. "Thank you, sir. We'll never forget that." As Patterson left, Harris sat alone again, gazing once more at the photograph. The memories of Hill 9, the gunfire, the desperation, and the single shot Alicia fired to save his life remained as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. He whispered to himself with gratitude and respect, "Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you for everything you've done and for everything you left behind." From that day forward, Harris carried the Black Viper photo with him always, a constant reminder of the weight of every decision he makes and every order he gives. It's more than a keepsake. It is a living symbol of sacrifice, loss, and the invisible responsibility a commander must bear. Meanwhile, on the Fort Bragg range, the recruits continued their training with Alicia's spirit guiding them. The bullets they fired were no longer meant to prove themselves or build reputations. Instead, each shot pledged to do everything possible to protect and bring their comrades home. No one voiced it openly, but everyone understood. Alicia Mitchell's legacy at Fort Bragg is not merely her letters or her marksmanship lessons. It is something far more profound. The spirit of a true soldier, one who knows the real value of life, of duty, and of comradeship. Time passed slowly, but the memories of Alicia Mitchell and the Black Viper unit never faded from the minds of those at Fort Bragg. While the base grew and transformed, fueled by the priceless lessons she left behind, somewhere far away, Alicia Mitchell lived quietly, removed from any spotlight. In a small house on the edge of a sleepy town, Alicia chose a life entirely apart. Each day she tended a tiny vegetable garden behind the house, walked along deserted country roads, and avoided the clamor of the outside world. To the locals, she was simply a quiet little black woman who rarely spoke. No one knew of her extraordinary and painful past. Yet, beneath that peaceful exterior, Alicia still fought old memories every day. Night after night, her dreams replayed the faces of comrades she couldn't save, the deafening crack of gunfire, and the acrid scent of gunpowder mingled with blood and dirt on the battlefield. She could never forget those final, desperate looks in the eyes of soldiers who had trusted her completely. Soldiers she had vowed to bring home, but ultimately failed. Each morning, Alicia sat by her window for a long time, gazing toward the endless horizon as though searching for something. A measure of forgiveness, a chance to atone, or at least a reminder that her life today wasn't hers alone, but carried the responsibility of the fallen. One morning, she found an unexpected letter from Fort Bragg waiting on her doorstep. Her hand trembled as she opened the envelope and read Colonel Harris's heartfelt words. Dear Mitchell, soon we will hold a special memorial ceremony to honor the soldiers who died on secret missions, especially the Black Viper unit. I know you prefer to live in silence, but I believe today's young soldiers deserve to know your story. They need to understand the true meaning of courage and sacrifice. Whether you come or not, please know your example has forever changed how we live and fight. Alicia read the letter over and over, tears welling in her eyes. She understood Harris's words, but she'd never imagined she would be remembered or honored this way. Up until now, she had convinced herself that a reclusive life was the only way to face her painful memories, to avoid the expectant gazes she feared would only let her down again. While Alicia wrestled with her feelings in that distant house, a solemn memorial was taking place at Fort Bragg. Hundreds of soldiers, from senior officers to fresh recruits, stood under the sun, silent, as Colonel Harris mounted the podium. He inhaled deeply, looked over the crowd, and spoke in a warm, emotional tone. Today, we stand not only to remember the soldiers who gave their lives, but to honor one special soldier, the woman who saved my life during the horrific battle on Hill 9 and who taught us our greatest lesson in courage and duty. He paused, visibly moved. Her name is Alicia Mitchell, small in stature yet possessing extraordinary bravery and resolve. In that battle, from over 900 meters away, she took out 11 enemy snipers to save me and my men. But more than that, she spent 6 hours watching over and protecting us from afar, all without revealing herself. She never sought to be hailed a hero, never wished for praise or accolades. The base fell silent, every soldier hanging on his every word. Alicia fought her own painful memories in silence, sacrificing more than any ordinary soldier. She carried the burden of responsibility and grief for those who never returned. Harris then pulled a small photo of the Black Viper unit from his pocket and held it aloft for all to see. "I carry this photo with me always," he said, "to remind me that behind every decision we make lies the lives and futures of many. This is the legacy Alicia Mitchell left us. She taught me, and all of you, what a true soldier is. Not just exceptional fighting skills, but courage, responsibility, and humility." His words resonated across the expanse, stirring deep emotion in every soldier present. None spoke aloud, but all felt profound gratitude for the woman they never met, yet from whom they'd learned their greatest lesson. Back at her little house, Alicia sat by the window, gazing at the clear blue sky. A surprising peace settled into her heart. She knew that, even if she remained in the shadows and silence, her lessons and sacrifices lived on, making the world a better place. For the first time in years, Alicia smiled, a true, serene smile. She whispered softly to the comrades who had fallen, "We did something meaningful, didn't we?" As the late afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, Alicia understood she no longer had to live forever in darkness. Though she'd remain out of sight, her legacy would endure in every soldier at Fort Bragg. Soldiers now stronger, responsible, and guided by everything she left behind. A peaceful smile had just flickered across Alicia Mitchell's lips as dusk settled in, and in that moment she knew she was finally ready to close a long, painful chapter of her life. Carefully, she drew a fresh sheet of paper from the drawer, sat down at the small table by the window, and gently picked up her pen, weighing each word before writing her final lines to her former comrade, Colonel Michael Harris. Alicia's handwriting was as crisp as ever, but this time it carried an added softness, depth, and sincerity. "Dear Colonel Harris, I heard about the memorial ceremony and what you said to everyone. I know you believe I saved your life that day on Hill 9, but the truth is you saved mine, not with a bullet or any heroic deed, but by helping me remember the real reason we bear arms. We do not fight to become heroes, nor to seek praise or glory. We pick up our rifles to protect those who cannot defend themselves, the most vulnerable, the ones who need us most at the critical moment. And above all, we must always be certain they are worth our sacrifice. Thank you, Michael, for reminding me why I once chose this path. I hope you and the young soldiers you lead will always remember this. Never underestimate the quiet ones around you, for it is often they who will save us when we least expect it. Sincerely, Alicia Mitchell." Putting her pen down, Alicia exhaled with relief. This simple letter held everything she had longed to say but kept buried deep in her heart. Folding it carefully, she sent it off in silence, confident that her words would live on in the hearts of those young soldiers, many of whom had never even met her, yet would carry her message far and wide. A few days later at Fort Bragg, Colonel Harris sat in his office, his hand trembling as he opened the letter from Alicia. As he read each line, his eyes welled with emotion. Once again, that petite, unassuming woman had taught him the most important lesson of his military career, not about medals or battlefield valor, but about the responsibility to protect and the meaning of true sacrifice. The next morning, Colonel Harris assembled all the new recruits and officers on the parade ground. Standing before them, he held Alicia's letter aloft, his voice warm yet resolute as he spoke. "I've just received this letter from Alicia Mitchell, someone who saved my life and who taught me the most vital lesson a soldier can learn. Today, I want each of you to listen closely, because this may be the most important lesson of your military journey. Silence fell over the ranks as every young recruit fixed their gaze on him. Taking a deep breath, Harris read Alicia's words aloud, each sentence ringing clearly across the formation. "We do not fight to become heroes, but to protect those who cannot defend themselves. Be certain they are worth your sacrifice." Those words sank deep into every heart, reminding them that being a soldier was more than firing weapons. It was about understanding the cause and the duty they carried each day. Folding the letter, his eyes shining with renewed conviction, Harris looked each soldier in the eye. "Remember, any one of us can be a silent hero, just like Mitchell. Never underestimate someone for their quiet humility, because those are often the people who save us at the most critical moments." No one spoke, but each pair of eyes gleamed with understanding. Through Colonel Harris, Alicia Mitchell's message had become their guiding principle for the road ahead. Far away, Alicia continued her quiet life, yet her heart felt lighter and more at peace than ever. She knew that however distant she might be, her final promise would endure. The soldiers she had trained, protected, and sacrificed for would carry her words forward. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alicia lifted her gaze to the sky and offered a peaceful smile. She imagined her fallen comrades watching over her, knowing she had fulfilled the promise she once whispered to them. Her message would live on in the hearts of the soldiers at Fort Bragg, traveling wherever they went to remind everyone that never underestimate the quiet ones. They are often the ones who will save you when it matters most. And so, without ever appearing again in person, Alicia Mitchell became an immortal symbol, a silent hero whose courage, humility, and unwavering sense of duty changed the world. After all, true heroes don't need an audience. They only need to know that their sacrifice was worth it. If this video moved you or gave you something meaningful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue bringing you more stories that inspire. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.